Guys, this space between the sky and the ground that we just totally take for granted. Do you think it was always there? Spoiler alert, the dawn of the universe was definitely not an aesthetic. It was a suffocating, hyper-oppressive trap, period. Out of the empty void of chaos, the ultimate cradle of everything, Gaia, goddess of the earth, reveals her massive silhouette, and boom, Act 1 begins. But hold up, the stage wasn't quite ready for life to pop off and history to start. Right above Gaia, pressing down on her with absolute mind-boggling mass, was Uranus, god of the sky, just sitting on top of her like an eternal, unyielding blanket. Uranus didn't leave even a millimeter of space for a single breeze to pass through. Inside this impossibly dense, murky space where not even a single photon of light could pierce through, Gaia's crust was groaning 24/7 under this massive load, just letting out these violent, echoing cracks. Now, I need you to picture an extreme environment here. Gaia's deep inner core was literally at 100% humidity, just completely packed with boiling steam and insane heat. And deep inside that dark, damp, pitch-black womb, Gaia was incubating some absolutely legendary creations, packing the fundamental energy of the cosmos. The Cyclopes, three one-eyed giants who would eventually forge the very trajectories of thunder and lightning, namely Brontes, Steropes, and Argus. Then we have the Hecatoncheires, rocking 100 arms and 50 heads, literally embodying the destructive earthquakes and tsunamis of Mother Nature. Their names? Codus, Briareos, and Gyges. But here's the catch. Uranus absolutely hated the bizarre energy radiating from these kids and their overwhelming raw power. It was this primal fear that they might just slip right out of his control. So, Uranus pressed down on the Earth with this crushing gravitational weight and completely blocked these newly formed giants from seeing even a single ray of light. He ruthlessly shoved his own kids down into Tartarus, the deepest, most chilling abyss of Gaia. Do you guys have any idea just how insanely deep Tartarus actually is? Ancient texts literally break it down like this. If you dropped a heavy bronze anvil from the surface, it would be in free fall day and night for 9 straight days just to hit the bottom. That's the kind of depth we're talking about. The heavy, muffled vibrations of the imprisoned kids pounding against those dark, wet rock walls literally shook Gaia's skeletal core, and the boiling lava erupting from the cracks in the earth, that was literally her agonizing moan. Enduring this endless cycle of pressure and absolute control, Gaia's profound grief finally started to condense into the coldest, hardest mineral imaginable. Deep in the Earth's lowest stratum, in a rift where only extreme light and shadow exist, Gaia pulled off the unthinkable. She extracted the pure essence of adamant, an unbreakable, unyielding mineral completely unknown to the universe until now. Inside this natural blast furnace, where the Earth's intense heat and dense moisture violently clashed, every time a heavy, chilling metallic strike echoed through the strata, a massive sickle, rocking a curve so majestic and sharp it could slice through the very backbone of the cosmos, the harp was slowly rendering its deadly, ultimate form. Finally ready to shatter this helpless silence, Gaia made her move. She summoned her other legendary children who were laying low in the pitch-black darkness, the 12 massive titans. In a colossal underground cavern, thick with fog and dripping condensation, brothers with absolute unit physiques, Oceanus, Coeus, Hyperion, and Iapetus, just lined up. As the bedrock vibrated with a heavy, low rumble, Gaia's deep, majestic voice cut right through the heavy air.
My glorious creations, we must put an end to the arrogance of that sky, crushing the universe with its endless mass. Who among you will step up and slice through this oppression that swallows the light, and locks your brothers in the abyss? Who is going to wield this cold metal?
The cold, ashen flash radiating from the adamantine sickle cast long, dark shadows over the Titan's damp, muscular frames. But faced with the absolute crushing scale of Uranus, pressing down so hard you couldn't even tell up from down, even the great Titan shrank back, avoiding eye contact and sinking into a heavy silence. Even the eldest brother, Oceanus, just shook his head. For a split second, a dangerously tense silence dominated the room, stretched as tight as a spider web. That's when the youngest, Cronus, standing at the very edge of the lineup, rocking the sharpest and most youthful intellect, sliced through his massive brothers and confidently stepped forward. Instead of fear, his eyes were flashing with this cold, calculated thirst for a brand new world order. Gripping the heavy handle of the massive harp his mother held out, Cronus declared with a heavy tone that literally shook the abyss of the earth.
"Mother, I will carry the weight of this sacred deconstruction with my own 2 hands. If locking life in the dark and blocking the very genesis of existence is what we call rule, then even if it's the primal law of the universe, it deserves to be shattered. I will personally sever this arrogant cycle."
All right, guys, the night of destiny has officially arrived. In the thick, suffocating darkness, without a single star in the sky, Uranus began his descent once again, dragging the massive veil of the atmosphere down with him. An oppressive pressure completely blanketed the world, and the Earth was silently crushed yet again by the sheer mass of the sky. The moment Uranus heavily settled down, fully covering every single contour of Gaia to flex his absolute dominion.
"No one can escape me. This universe will remain entirely under my veil. Forever."
The exact moment Uranus's arrogant verdict echoed across the Earth, Cronus was perfectly camouflaged in Locos, the ambush point, a tight, razor-sharp crevice in the bedrock completely saturated at 100% humidity, holding his breath. He stayed ice-cold and calculated, waiting for the exact millisecond the sky's most vulnerable core touched the Earth. And finally, the second that perfect window opened up, Cronus exploded upward like an absolute beast. The destructive energy packed into Cronus's massively expanding muscles hyper-condensed right at the tip of the adamantine sickle. Following the sickle's trajectory through the void, a cold, razor-sharp metallic screech echoed out like it was tearing the entire cosmos to shreds. Guys, this wasn't just some basic physical attack. It was a sacred, breathtaking masterclass where Uranus's absolute dominion, the axis of oppression that existed since the dawn of time, was completely disassembled into pure light under pressure that defied physics. The split second that fundamental link of control was severed, the horrific pressure crushing the Earth literally vanished into thin air. Stripped of his authority, Uranus's massive body, which had been blanketing the Earth with infinite mass, was violently launched to the furthest edge of the sky with a massive, agonizing sonic boom. An epic shockwave tore through the atmosphere as heaven and earth were ripped apart, and finally, a hollow matrix, what we literally know as space, was spawned between up and down, sky and earth. Through that infinitely wide rift, the very first clear, transparent starlight, which hadn't touched the Earth since the universe dropped, began pouring down like a blinding, spectacular waterfall. The murky, suffocating vibe of the atmosphere completely cleared out, and hundreds of billions of light sources brilliantly illuminated the newly liberated Earth in this extreme contrast of light and dark. It was a blinding, glorious liberation, the moment a closed universe literally leveled up into an open one. But hold up, guys, we are not done yet. Those severed fragments of Uranus's authority that got launched into space, they didn't just evaporate into nothingness. As the heavy divine essence scattered from his collapsed power rained down and seeped into the wet earth, it violently reacted with the soil, triggering a bizarre and honestly chilling biological mutation. Right where the blood-red dust kicked up, Alecto, Megaera, and Tisiphone, the three Erinyes who execute the horrifying vengeance of causality, opened their cold eyes and rose up. Right after them, the fully armed Gigantes, giants who literally didn't even fear the sky, shook the earth as they stood up. And along with them came the Meliae, the ash tree spirits that would one day become the razor-sharp shafts of warriors' spears. So basically, a revolution built on violence just ended up planting the seeds for even more violence deep in the earth. Meanwhile, the absolute largest chunk of his authority, which plummeted straight into the center of the deep cosmic ocean, violently merged with the blue water and started to boil over. A brilliantly luminous, blinding white sea foam started frothing on the surface of the dark ocean. Riding the ocean currents, that foam drifted past the island of Cythera in southern Greece, slowly rendering its shape. And finally, when it hit the beautiful eastern coastline of Cyprus, through the churning foam in the thick, wet fog, an entity stepped out. Aphrodite, the ultimate prototype of absolute beauty, who would later paralyze the logic of both gods and mortals with her fatal charm, slowly rendered her flawlessly curved silhouette and took her first breath in the world. Seriously, think about this. Out of the most violent, brutal act of destruction and castration, paradoxically, the most beautiful goddess in the universe just spawned. Now, on the surface, this epic cosmic event looks like a glorious saga of liberation against oppression. But what if we do a cold, hard deconstruction of this, using modern theology and philosophy? This right here is the terrifying starting point, where the brutal cycle of causality gets booted up. The separation of sky and earth finally opened up a space for them to interact, sure, but Cronus's cold sickle strike, used to claim that very space, ultimately became a trap of philosophical nihilism that chained him down as the exact same kind of oppressive tyrant. The deconstruction of absolute power is literally just the birth of a new power. The invisible tip of the adamantine sickle that struck down his father was already slowly altering its trajectory, aiming straight for Cronus's own neck. All right, you know I can't let this slide without doing a quick fact check on this epic event using modern physics. It's just who I am. The total mass of the Earth's atmosphere, including the troposphere and stratosphere, is roughly 5.14 times 10 to the 18th power kilograms. And he pushed all of that out of atmospheric orbit with a single sickle swing? Whew, that is a massive mechanical energy conversion that would completely crash Earth's gravitational field values. Honestly, just from the shock wave and the friction heat of spatial expansion, the moment the adamant sickle sliced through the void, half of the planet's crust should have instantly vaporized into a blinding plasma state and scattered as space dust. It is absolutely not some cozy environment where a beautiful Milky Way cascades gracefully and Aphrodite can just delicately step out of a bubble bath. I can literally hear the second law of thermodynamics screaming and collapsing in my head. But hey, what can you do? Because honestly, isn't grabbing the laws of physics by the collar and just pushing forward with absolute mind-bending scale the whole charm of mythology? I literally had to sit here and quietly talk myself out of mentally calculating the spatial expansion rate versus Uranus's mass. Look, I'm an engineer at heart. Cut me some slack. Now the master of a new throne, Cronus has total control over this vast, infinite space. But inside the mind of someone who usurps power, endless suspicion and crippling paranoia inevitably start growing like toxic mushrooms. Did he actually keep his promise to Mother Gaia and free his brothers locked in the abyss? Next time, in the Codex, Episode 3, we're diving straight into the reign of Cronus, who accidentally turned into a monster himself, trying to avoid his father's mistakes, the usurpation of dominion, and the absolute rule of the Titans. Stick around.